What's going on, everybody, and welcome back once again to the channel. In this video, I'm gonna be giving my reaction to the 2023 NFL Draft now that it is officially over. And by the way, heck of an upset win for the Arlington Renegades yesterday in the Southern Division Championship in the XFL over the Houston Roughnecks. Luis Perez showed up, and that defense of the Arlington Renegades showed up, and they're advancing to the XFL Championship. Heck of a game. Um, but without further ado, let's get into this. So, the NFL draft is officially over. It was a wild week. It was a very hard draft to predict. And I just want to kind of give my thoughts on some of the key moments in this draft. So, obviously, number one overall, Bryce Young went to the Panthers. Interesting move. I mean, this is the kind of move that I think 3-4 years from now we could easily look back on and think, what were we all thinking? A 5'10", barely 200-pound quarterback who was in a loaded system in Alabama, going number one overall, or it can be looked back on as a great pick. We will soon find out. I mean, the pieces are there for the Panthers. They've built a solid receiving core there for Bryce Young and company, and their defense isn't a whole lot bad. So I don't think this is oh yeah, we're a couple years away still. No, I think this team is ready to compete now, especially for how weak their division is. Then obviously second overall, the Houston Texans took C.J. Stroud. I thought he would go number one overall, but he went number two overall. Obviously a guy with insane accuracy. I think this was a good pick, but we'll see how he can handle it on an NFL level, NFL offense. And then the Texans, this is the first time I can remember in a while that a team got two picks in the top three. The Texans went and got Will Anderson, so they got two anchors for their team. They're trying to shift the culture. They got the anchor for their offense, and then they got the anchor for their defense, and Will Anderson Jr., probably the best defensive prospect in this draft, or the safest one. I think that was a very gutsy but good move on the Texans' part. Fourth overall, the Colts took Anthony Richardson. I thought that they would be taking Will Levis at this point, but they ended up taking Anthony Richardson, their boomer bust prospect from the Florida Gators. This was interesting. We will see how Anthony Richardson transitions, but I think more than anything, what the Colts need to do with him is just let him play. I think having this guy sit is not a good idea. The only way you can learn and get experience is by playing. He barely played in college. He needs to just get these reps going in the NFL. With the fifth pick, the Seahawks took Devon Witherspoon, running mate with Tariq Woolen over there. The Cardinals took Paris Johnson Jr., 6 overall. They're investing fully on Kyler Murray. Tyree Wilson went to the Raiders to pair with, to go with Chandler Jones and Crosby. The Falcons took Bijan Robinson. The Eagles were able to land Jalen Carter, who you could make an argument was the best prospect in this draft, but the off-the-field issues hurt him. The Eagles just continue at it. And then obviously later on they got Nolan Smith. And then they drafted Kelee Ringo later on in the draft. So they got 3 Georgia Bulldogs along with already 2 other Georgia Bulldogs they have on that team. So now they have Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Nakobe Dean, and Kelee Ringo all on that defense that was part of that 2021 National Championship team of the Georgia Bulldogs. It's just pretty insane how the draft fell for the Eagles. They may have had the best draft out of anybody. The Lions taking Jahmyr Gibbs, number 12 overall, I thought was a bit of a reach, and it wasn't really a position of need, but, now they went ahead and traded DeAndre Swift. Speaking of the Eagles, that's another reason why this draft went so well for the Eagles. I mean, they were able to get a great running back for pennies in DeAndre Swift. I think DeAndre Swift has barely touched the surface with the Lions, and I think with an offensive line like the Eagles, he can really thrive. This might be the best running back the Eagles have had in the last few years. Great trade there for the Eagles. If I were to give a grade for the trade, I'd give the Eagles an A, and I'd give the Lions a C-. I just don't really quite get the Jahmyr Gibbs pick. I mean, sure, maybe you think Jahmyr Gibbs is an upgrade over DeAndre Swift, but would you rather have Jahmyr Gibbs and where you got with your 4th round pick, or would you rather have DeAndre Swift and whoever you could have gotten with your 12th overall pick? I don't know. I don't think it was a great move for the Lions. Obviously, a lot of interesting picks along the way. I can't go over all of them. Jackson Smith-Njigba to the Seahawks will be interesting. Quentin Johnston to the Chargers is scary. That might be the best wide receiver trio in the NFL. And Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and now Quentin Johnston. I was a little bit surprised that the Chargers went receiver here, especially with a D tackle like Brian Breesy or Mozzie Smith still on the board. I think that's more of a position of need, but I think they couldn't resist that wide receiver trio with Justin Herbert. The Ravens took Zay Flowers, 22 overall, give Lamar Jackson receiving core. This might be the best receiving core Lamar Jackson's had ever. You know, you put Zay Flowers there, you got OBJ, you still have Rashad Bateman, you signed Nelson Aguilar, plenty of weapons now. 23 overall, the Vikings took Jordan Addison, a running mate with Justin Jefferson, now that Adam Thielen's gone. The Bills got Dalton Kincaid, they're trying to go get themselves an elite tight end. The Cowboys continued to beef their defensive line, drafting Mozzie Smith. Felix Anudike-Uzomah to the Kansas City Chiefs, went to Kansas State. I would have liked to see the Chiefs gotten Joey Porter Jr. here, but Felix Anudike-Uzomah was a good pick. I think he was more of a mid-second round, early second round kind of guy. But you get him here in the late first round, and they wouldn't have been able to get him by the time they were back on the board again, and they wanted to get him. So it was a good pick for them. Now, obviously, as I mentioned, Joey Porter Jr. went to the Steelers, the team of his father. Pretty cool story there. The Titans got Will Levis in the second round. He fell. One of the more shocking things of this draft, Will Levis falling that far. He will enter a situation there where he might be the third quarterback to start on the depth chart, but maybe he can work his way up. Then the Lions took Sam Laporta in the second round over Michael Mayer, Darnell Washington, Tucker Kraft. I really don't get what the Lions are doing. I think this is a team that has been trending in the right way, but this draft was really weird for them, in my opinion. The Raiders were able to get Michael Mayer, the Darren Waller replacement. Derek Hall went to the Seahawks. He has a heck of a backstory. Check it out if you haven't. The Panthers took wide receiver Jonathan Mingo with 39th pick. I think that was a bit of a stretch, in my opinion. Luke Musgrave went to the Packers. Good pickup there. They've been in need of a pure tight end one for a while. Joe Tippmann, 43 overall, the center from Wisconsin, to the Jets. Give Aaron Rodgers some more protection. That whole left side of the line with Elijah Vera Tucker, Mekhi Beckman. Jets offensive line is looking good. Brian Branch fell all the way to the 14th pick. This was a good pick for the Lions. The 45th pick. This was a good pick for the Lions, getting Brian Branch. It was a position of need, and I think it was a steal at this point in the draft. Chiefs selecting Rashee Rice was a little bit of a surprise to me this early in the draft, but they traded up to get him, so clearly they wanted him, and apparently Patrick Mahomes had requested for the Chiefs to go after Rashee Rice after practicing with him during the off-season. Like I said, I could spend a lot more time on each pick and talk a lot about more picks, but I don't want this video to be 2 hours long. Moving on to round 3, Drew Sanders falling all the way to the third round was a bit of a surprise to me. Broncos were able to get him in the third round. Hendon Hooker falling all the way to the Lions. A pick I don't really like for the Lions, getting Hendon Hooker here. I think you should have just fully committed to Jared Goff or waited until next year to draft a quarterback, especially if the best you could have gotten was Hendon Hooker. Now, Hendon Hooker, I think, is a guy who could have gone early second round, late first round. So I think it was a good value pick, but I just don't think it was they could have used this pick on something else. But at the same time, it's a third round pick. It was a pretty good pick. It's good value at this point. You can make an argument. Jalen Hyatt falling all the way to the 73rd pick to the Giants was a bit of a surprise. A lot of people had him being mocked in the late first round, early second round. This was a bit of a surprise, a receiver from Tennessee, but I think it's a great pick for the Giants. You got Sterling Shepard, you got Wan'Dale Robinson. Jalen Hyatt can be your number 3 receiver and possibly work his way up to number 1. Then the Packers got Tucker Kraft along with Luke Musgrave. They have 2 really good tight ends now. I think they're going to be trying to do a lot of 2 tight end sets there for Jordan Love. That's going to be interesting. Josh Downs to the Colts was a bit of a surprise of how far he fell down in the draft. And then Devon Achane, the speedsters gets faster. the Dolphins picked up Devon Achane, the speedy running back. You know, this guy I think was really underrated in the draft process. This guy has electrifying speed, and you pair him there in that offense with already an offense that has Raheem Mostert, a speed demon, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Robbie Anderson, speed demons. I mean, it's just crazy the kind of speed the Dolphins got. I think it's not a stretch of the imagination to say anymore this is the fastest team in NFL history, especially at this point. Jordan Battle falling all the way to the Bengals in the 3rd round was a good pickup for them. 4th round, the Rams selected Stetson Bennett. Now, Stetson Bennett, a lot of people thought he may have gone undrafted. I thought he would be drafted, but I thought he would be taken in the 6th or 7th round. And the other thing with Stetson Bennett is, I mean, this guy just won 2 national championships. I've been always thinking, why is his draft stock so low? Why isn't this guy like a late 2nd round pick kind of guy? This guy just won back-to-back national championships, and it's not because he was just handing the ball off. If you watch the college football playoffs this past year, when the mighty Georgia Bulldogs defense, Kirby Smart's mighty Georgia Bulldogs defense that no one can score on, completely collapsed in that game against Ohio State. You know who went and won them the game? Stetson Bennett. CJ Stroud was ripping apart that Georgia Bulldogs defense in that playoff game, and Stetson Bennett did not fold. He drove that team up and down the field and went, you know, back and forth with CJ Stroud, who was the 2nd overall pick in this draft. So don't tell me about how this Georgia Bulldogs defense carried them back-to-back years. That defense completely collapsed in that game. CJ Stroud was ripping them apart. And I just don't quite get why this guy's draft stock is so low. But yeah, I mean, the Rams get him in the 4th round and maybe potentially the quarterback of the future there for the LA Rams. And then in the 7th round, the Chargers selected Max Duggan, the runner-up Heisman winner to Caleb Williams, a guy who led his team to the national championship for TCU. I don't quite get the low draft stock with him either. Obviously, he's not going to start with the Chargers. He's a backup there. Who knows? Maybe he won't make the roster and someone else will pick him up. But it's just interesting how some guys are viewed in the draft process. But yeah, comment down below what you guys think about the draft. It was a pretty wild draft. A lot of trades, a record-setting amount of trades throughout the draft. But yeah, I mean, can't spend time on every single pick. But yeah, those were my main ones I wanted to address. So yeah, other than that, I'll see you guys next time.